Welcome to Tabletop Gaming Guild. Tabletop Gaming Guild is all about the experiences and memories that playing tabletop games with friends and families can curate. Today we're looking at Keydom's Dragons, designed by Richard Breeze, published by R&D Games, and art by Vicky Dalton. Keydom's Dragon is a reprint of a classic game from the 90s that's gone under several names, including, of course, Keydom's Dragons, Aladdin's Dragons, and Keydom. This is a worker placement game in which you're going to town to get resources, exploring dragon caves while they're away to get wealth, to bribe guards, and get into a castle and bribe more guards to get artifacts that give you power. And you win by having the most artifacts at the end of the game. The game gives you a player shield that doubles as your player aid, behind which you will hide your 8 workers and whatever artifacts you have. You can also throw in 1 or 2 ghosts as AI players. At the beginning of each turn, you'll flip a treasure card, and that will determine what resources go onto the board. These indicate caves where the dragon has left for the day and are safe to explore. Any caves without any resources, the dragon is still sleeping in that cave and you do not dare go in. All worker placement is done prior to revealing and resolving any locations, and there's any number of workers can go into one location. Once all workers are out, you will then resolve each location in alphabetical order. Locations are resolved by determining who has the strongest total value of workers. At the Dragon Cave, players receive resources in order of total worker strength. Once all resources are depleted from a cave, any players who have not yet got anything are just out of luck. At the various village locations, they have effects such as getting first player, trading resources, getting extra artifact actions, or getting spells. In order to actually use any of your workers in the castle, your total worker value at the guardhouse has to exceed the value of the guard. However, if it's less than the value of the guard, you can always pay the difference in resources. In the castle rooms, you can ignore any player pieces belonging to somebody who failed to get through the guard room. If you win, the amount you bid is how much you have to pay, and the number of different workers you use is the number of different resources you have to use. Once per round, at any point within that round, whether it's your turn or not, you can use an artifact. Bear in mind that any artifacts played are not spent. They come back to you at the end of the round. The wand allows you to use spell cards that you have in your hand. If you activate an amulet at the time a spell is played, you cancel that spell. If you activate a key, you can get through the guard room without having to have a worker or spending the resources to get through. Mirror, when activated, duplicates a worker at a location. However, bear in mind, if you use this to capture an artifact in the castle, you're increasing the cost of that you must spend, as well as the number of resource types. Raven can be activated at any time to count as a 3-value worker in the active locations. And again, if you use it in a castle room, that does increase the amount you must spend, as well as the number of types of resources you must spend. Finally, you have scrolls, which are simply a tiebreaker at the end of the game. The game ends immediately once the last artifact is purchased. The winner is the person with the most artifacts. After your first game, you might want to throw in ghosts just to change up player count, and which actually has a pretty significant effect on the strategies of the game. Ghost also has its own rules for using artifacts and spells. Ghost workers have 2 numbers. The top number is for if they're in the castle, the bottom number is for everywhere else. So that's how the ghost player works. But bear in mind, the ghost player can actually win the game. They count each artifact just like any player, but they also count any unused spell cards they have remaining as well. For every 2 unused spell cards, it counts as if they had 1 artifact. Overall, I think this is a solid, thinky game, though it has a few slightly rough edges. I did really like how the worker placement was essentially a secret bidding mechanism. It gave you a little bit more freedom, but also added that tension. It's like you don't know whether you're actually going to get that action. So what can you do to ensure that action that you really need? The artifact powers also I thought were pretty effective, but I felt like the order of actions really limited your functionality. So it felt like there's a lot of times where artifacts didn't get played as much because people weren't sure if they could play a second one until we got to that stage in the round. So a cautious player could lose a lot of opportunities, but with some forward planning and some risk taking, you could do really well. On the reverse side of the player board is a duplicate player board without text. So once you play the game enough, if you want to play on the pretty side without the text, you can go ahead. I feel like this is kind of a wasted opportunity. If they're going to do double-sided printing, they might as well have changed up and have something that changes the game slightly. I probably would have went with simply altering the order in which actions are resolved on the reverse side of the board. The ghost players really changed up how the game is played. Ghosts have a pretty good chance of winning, and often players would team up against the ghosts and almost become a semi-co-op game. With all that said, I did really enjoy the tenseness of this game. Every worker you place is critical, as you don't know what other players have placed, and you're trying to double think and analyze their actions, so every turn matters whether it's your turn or not. There is no downtime in this game because of that. So I would say if you like that kind of game with a fair amount of future planning as well as risk assessment, this is a great game to try out, and it's not terribly expensive. Thank you again for watching. Please join us again on YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, and other social medias. And please don't forget to like and subscribe.